Tonight, the California Alumni Association is proud to present the Honorable Thelton Eugene Henderson as the 2008 Alumnus of the Year. Thelton Henderson was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. When he was 3, his family moved west and settled in south central Los Angeles.
I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said everything he is and hopes to be he owes to his mother, and I think I can honestly say that. My mom insisted that her only child be something special. I remember one time I came home when I was playing football at Jefferson High with the kids on the team, and I would have books to do my homework, and came to realize they had no books and they all had shop courses. So one day I said, you know, Mom, I'm going to change to shop course. And boy, I can still hear her voice saying, "You will not."
He took his mother's advice to heart.
At Jefferson High, we didn't know the word nerd back in 1951. I was a nerd. I couldn't dance at a school where everybody was hip and could dance and were talking jive talk. And I was really square. And I think the thing that saved me at Jefferson High was I was captain of the football team.
With a football scholarship, Thelton arrived in Berkeley in the summer of 1951, thinking he was ready to tackle the new rigors on the field and in the classroom.
Cal had just gone to the Rose Bowl 3 years in a row, and we opened that 51 season as the #1 team in the country. So, you know, it was good days to play. Pappy was a wonderful psychologist, and we were standing there, about 20, 25 of us, freshman team, said, now, everybody who was captain of their team or all city or all league, and name some things, move over here. And I thought, I'll move over with the special guys. And every guy moved over. And it was a wonderful way to say, hey, I'm not so special. There are a lot of good guys. And he did psychological things like that, which I think is part of his greatness.
After working and serving in the military, Thelton returned to Berkeley and entered law school in 1959. He worked as hard as ever.
I got good grades at Cal, and so I went to Bolt thinking, now all I'm going to do is study. I'm going to really burn down this place. And again, it was like the freshman football team. I neglected the fact that everybody there was smart. But it was a wonderful experience, a wonderful learning experience.
At the time, career choices for young African-American lawyers were very limited. Fortunately, a Berkeley Law School connection opened a new door.
Thelton was called into the dean's office, and that the deans told him he should apply to work in the Department of Justice because John Doerr, who was the #2 person in the Civil Rights Division and was a Bolt alumnus, had called looking for African-American law students.
There were no black lawyers working in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana on voting rights.
He and other attorneys helped to enforce the Voting Rights Act by investigating patterns and practices that denied blacks the right to vote.
The law required you to find a pattern and practice of discrimination. And the pattern and practice was generally something like, let's take an easy area, go to Tuskegee, where they have a university, and you would have blacks with master's degrees who couldn't pass the voting test, and they weren't registered voters. And you'd have whites with third-grade educations who couldn't read who passed, so you knew something was wrong.
He was there during a very tumultuous period.
It was scary, it was exciting. I think most importantly, I felt I was doing something. I felt I was doing my part in something that was very, very important.
The fact that there was a representative of the federal government who was African American, I think, made a big difference in terms of the ability of the government to know what was going on and of the people in the movement to be able to communicate with the government.
Thelton valued his post with the Department of Justice, but a well-intentioned gesture would alter his path.
In Birmingham at that time, there was only one place for blacks to stay. There was only the A.G. Gaston Motel. And of course, that's where Dr. King stayed when he was in town, and that's where I stayed. One day I had been working on a voting rights case, and I was driving into the motel parking lot just as Dr. King was being driven out by a Reverend Smith. And he was on the way to Selma. And then he said, you know, Reverend Smith has a bad tire on his car. Do you think we could use your car? And I said, of course. We knew his life was in danger. And I thought, boy, if he gets a flat tire on the way from Berman to Selma, he's probably a dead man.
The law enforcement people knew that the car had been rented by Thelton, and they followed that car and saw that it was Dr. King in the car and not Thelton. And then they made the accusation that the government was providing rental cars to Dr. King.
The Southern papers really hammered the Justice Department about that. Thelton thought, and the Attorney General thought, that there was really no alternative.
I felt like I was a failure. My first job out of law school, I had essentially gotten fired.
It was unfortunate and tragic in a way, but he went on. And he certainly went on in a very admirable way.
I will continue to work with all my strength for equal opportunity for all Americans and for affirmative action for those who carry the extra burden of past denial of equal opportunity.
In 1980, Thelton was elected by President Jimmy Carter to sit in the Northern District of California.
Thelton, his career as a federal judge is truly remarkable.
And I think that he, as a federal judge, has felt a deep responsibility to serve the public.
The work that he's done in the prisons, boy, that's just a remarkable judicial record. A place where there was a real need, he took it upon himself. He went out and where he didn't figure he was getting all the information he needed from sitting on the bench, he kept at it. It was brilliant.
You don't end up in federal district court unless you've got a pretty serious problem. And one thing that advocates from every perspective will tell you is not just that Thelton is fair, but that he is decent, that he is kind, that he is generous from the bench to parties on all sides of a dispute.
He's a value-holding judge without being a renegade or a wild man. He simply is not an ideologue who's simply finding excuses to do what he wants to do anyway. He really is in the law, and he loves his time in the law.
Recently, the Center for Social Justice at Berkeley's Law School was renamed in his honor.
In many ways, Thelton simply exemplifies the values and the mission of the Center for Social Justice. In what ways can training in law, can the life in the law be turned to the betterment of society? Much of Thelton's career has been about that.
When I look back on where I've come, it really seems to me to be the American story. You can succeed. Maybe it's harder to get from South Central LA to where I am today, but it can be done. And I think that's the message I try to bring to young people. I find it hard to believe that I've been elected Cal Alumnus of the Year. And it still blows me away that I'm on a list with these remarkable people. And figure when I am in a situation like that, I'm not going to ask any questions about how it happened. I'm going to grab it and run.
Baby, so doggone fine, send cold chills up and down my spine. Whoa, whoa, yeah, so fine.
Congratulations to Judge Thelton Henderson, the 2008 Alumnus of the Year.